All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you guys are having a great day, great week. Congratulations to all of you who survived your last FOMC meeting, CPI, etc., all of that this week, and we lived it through the entire year. And here we are, last 2 weeks of the year left. Thankful for all of you guys here in TRT. Appreciate you guys tuning into the videos and participating in the chats. Um, Shout out to all of you who have survived a year of one of the most choppiest markets we've seen since 2008. All right, so this has been an extraordinary year, and I'm glad that we can end this week. After the turbulence, um, we ended it positive. And that's something to celebrate for. That's something to be thankful for, because if you're out there, a lot of folks are losing money on calls today. But like I said, great week, great way to end the week. Like I said, I'm holding on to those 375 SPY puts for January at this point. I scalped a whole bunch of calls. I'm not bearish enough to not have an open mind. Okay. So definitely we scalp, or I did at least. Okay. So I did it from my dad's house. Just on my phone, just scalp some calls, make up for the puts. But at the end of the day, the puts actually went back to even price. So not a big deal. All right. So a couple things before we jump into the charts. All right. So I know that some of you guys out there are looking for reversal, and I think you're right. I think it'll come. Okay, it's important that we still use price action and volume as primary indicators, and not the oscillators. Oscillators are important, but they tend to lag, and they tend to not matter when the momentum of the price action is skewed in a certain direction. Okay, so just be careful of that. Okay, everybody is looking for a reversal, and I think we got it on spies this afternoon. Right, finally it jumped off the 381 area, and went on a nice little run to the moving average 200. We've been trending under the moving average 200 for quite some time now, for at least almost 2 days. So a test was going to come. So if you grab some calls, great, fantastic. But I think for the most part, going into next year, there's a lot of tax loss selling. Okay. The hedge funds are short in the market at this point, so they're going to fade every pop. All right. And there's not a ton of good news in the next couple weeks that I'm expecting. Anything can happen, obviously, but technically speaking, you're right. We are absolutely oversold on most timeframes, especially hourly timeframes. Okay. But I want to just look at the Q real quick. Okay. So on the Q, we ended up having kind of a somewhat of a doji day. All right. We came into the gap. All right. And held this support area, which was exactly 272.90 area. So this particular area, let me move up this line right here, held perfectly. All right. So this is now support for the Qs 272 going into next week. Okay. If we do not hold the 272 next week, I think they're going for that gap fill. And I do think early part of next week, they will try to fill this 268 gap on the Qs and finally get it over with. Okay. But so far today, it held that November 8th resistance, okay, which now turns into support. All right. But here's the funny thing about today, too. Over the last 3 days on the downside, you had declining volume, not much, okay, but pretty high volume versus the last several weeks here. But today you had increase in volume on the sell side. All right. So as the momentum the sell momentum is there, but that momentum is starting to snowball a little bit. Okay, which means that you can likely see a little bit more further downside before once that gap fills, until it starts moving up. So what's likely to happen, in my opinion, at least on a daily chart, I think that before we try to fill this gap, I do think they're going to pump it towards that 375 area. all right, maybe 275. Okay, so you can kind of see a potential situation like this next week, right? Maybe Monday pre-market, it jumps up to 275 before making a final move or some move back to the 268 and fill this gap here at the 268 level. Okay, so watch out for that. But my next week target for the Qs is going to be 268. You can see that yes, absolutely, we are so oversold on the CCI. However, price still trumps oscillators. Okay, so I get that some of you guys are looking for a balance and we're oversold, and that's true. However, the price is still skewing or favoring the downside as of this moment. Okay, anything can change on Monday, and I will change with the market. All right, so that's the target for the Qs 268 for next week. Going back to SPY, so obviously I've been trading a lot more SPYs in the last week and a half. Just switching things up in a room. I know we used to all trade the Qs, but the SPY did actually enter into the gap and did fill this gap on a downside at 380, right about 380 mark. So we did fill that area and we did bounce, right? And you can see the SPY intraday here hit 381 lows and jump right back up towards that 385 mark, but dump back down to 382 at this point. Okay, so there is this little gap that perhaps needs to get filled. Ultimately, this gap up here at 395, 396 is all going to get filled eventually. All right, but you can see the volume for the last 4 trading days are significant. Okay, more so than here, on this sell side. More so than here on this sell side back on October 14th. So volume is piling in. They're shorting every pop. Okay. And you're seeing that because number one, once again, the hedge funds are shorting at this point. Okay. Since the SPX broke 3,900 levels, they've been shorting it down. Okay. And I think they will continue to do so. The tax loss selling, okay, is taking effect as well into the end of the year. Next week, you have Christmas is next Sunday, right? So obviously after the first maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, you're going to see volume decline. All right. So you might want to consider trading only a few days next week and taking the rest off because you're likely going to get some chop next week. But we'll see what happens. All right. So my downside target for the SPYs next week, if we do not hold the 280 level on this high volume selling, okay, yes, the gap filled. All right. But you're likely to see 270, I would say 375. There's some support here at 375, right around this area. So you can see, I'll show you here, right around here. You're starting to come into some support, maybe some demand area here. Not much, but there's some demand here. Excuse me, at the 375 level. So that would be my downside target for next week. I kind of get a sense that, hey, we might come up and fill this gap, but I don't think it's going to be anything worthy of a reversal. All right, not yet anyway, especially with high volume selling at this point. So downside target, I'm just going to put it there at 375. And then most likely I think once we hit that 375 or break the 380 area, you'll likely see a bounce back into the 385 once this hits. Okay. So with that being said, let's talk about the calendar for next week. There's not much data happening on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but Thursday is our jobless claims, which probably is not going to be looking that great for the Feds. We do on Thursday, you have GDP Q3 estimate as well. Okay, so that's going to be a big mover next Friday. Next Friday is going to be PCE. Okay, what's it called? Anyway, it's the PCE. Okay, so that's coming in next Friday. All right, December 23rd. 6.0 is there's no forecast here. Hang on a second. Let's see, PCE price index. There's a core. Yeah, there's a core price index, 4.6%. Okay, core price index. Let's take a look here. Okay, core PCE. All right, which includes, okay, so its forecast is 4.6%. So yeah, I think you might get a little bounce if these numbers come in kind of low on Friday, but So yeah, that's basically all your data going into Thursday, Friday. Friday, you do have Michigan consumer sentiment and also the new home sales, which could be another big market mover. All right. So let me step back from my comments earlier. I do think it's worth trading the next 5 days into Christmas, but I think the volume is going to be lower anyway. So it could be subject to algos and games on the market. So just be aware of that. Okay. As far as the short time frame, guys, the 30-minute chart, we've been using it. You can see that we're going to run into a lot of trouble if we bounce to 388. Okay. Here we're kind of starting to move back down after the pump to 385 earlier in intraday, and below this it's just going to get a little bit nastier. All right, you can see on the 1 hour chart there is still a market imbalance that needs to get filled, and this goes down to 375. You look at this giant candlestick that I've been telling you about since yesterday, is that this one long 1 hour candlestick has a lot of the market imbalance, so it needs to get filled. So downside target, like I mentioned, if we break that 380 area, you're going to see 370s pretty quick. So again, downside target 375. That's why I put that target there, to target this particular candlestick. That's just kind of a sore thumb that needs to get filled. All right. With that, I hope you guys have a